We apologize for the uncustomary delay in our broadcast. We are experiencing a technical difficulty with our transmission signal. This is 5 on 20 News, where the news is sometimes nonsensical, but the newscasters are no nonsense, with Luke Goodhart
and Phil Gordon, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson.
First, the local headlines.
In police brutality news, there is a troubling story from our fellow Blue County friends upstate. A member of the Flagstaff Police Department has been placed on administrative leave after a disturbing video surfaced on Wednesday. The video, which was captured by a bystander on a cell phone, shows 28-year-old Officer Jeff Bonar attempting to detain Flagstaff resident Marissa Morris. The 30-year-old woman appeared to not understand why she was being arrested, stating in the video, quoting, "You cannot arrest me until I know I have a warrant." Morris continued to plead with the officers that she had no outstanding warrants, at which point the interaction quickly escalated. The graphic video clearly shows Officer Bonar striking her forcefully in the face with a closed fist, causing her head to snap back violently. She was then threatened with a taser, wrestled to the ground, and that's right, she was intimidated and punched in the face, and then she was arrested for assault. Even more galling is the fact that, according to Flagstaff PD, Morris was correct in her protestations that she in fact had no active warrants. Luckily for the actual victim here, a bystander was recording the incident. According to his own statement, Bonar had conveniently switched off his body camera before assaulting Morris. After her arrest, she was taken to Coconino Detention Center, where she was booked for aggravated assault.
In a press conference held yesterday morning, Flagstaff Police Chief Kevin Treadway said not only is Flagstaff PD Internal Affairs conducting an investigation into the assault, but that he has also requested the NAU Police Department to conduct a separate, independent criminal investigation into Officer Bonar's actions. As of Thursday night, Bonar had been stripped of his police powers and placed on administrative leave. Treadway also said in the conference, quote, "I am concerned with what is depicted in the video, as I know many are. I have heard your concerns, and the department is taking this incident very seriously." Bonar, perhaps attempting to mitigate his unwarranted vicious behavior, said in his written statement, quote, "After the confrontation, I started to have respiratory problems and was struggling breathing. I had been previously sick, and the scuffle appeared to have aggravated my breathing, but I had no other injuries. We all feel really bad about that aggressive case of the sniffles you maybe had last week. Maybe don't punch women in the face for no reason, or any reason, like ever. Let's all hope this is the end of your short and dubious career in public service. On second thought, let's do more than hope. Let's all call the Flagstaff PD and demand the immediate termination of this vicious jackwagon. Here's the number, 928-779-3646.
The Tucson police chief says he won't change the level of enforcement of undocumented immigrants. On Tuesday, Chief Chris Magnus said police have built up significant trust with the immigrant community, and he doesn't want to jeopardize this by focusing more on illegal immigration. The announcement is especially significant given the president-elect's signature election day promises. Current TPD policy states that officers cannot stop a person unless they are believed to be engaging in criminal activity. Arizona State Bill SB 1070, which was diluted after the original law sparked national protests, requires that police also make a reasonable attempt to determine immigration status if they suspect a person is in the U.S. illegally. Magnus questioned the feasibility of Trump's plans, asking that officers consider many issues, such as availability of ICE staff and unreasonable workloads when deciding whether to pursue immigrants. Magnus said that an aggressive approach could interfere with criminal investigations because residents might be afraid of reporting a crime if they think officers still question immigration status. Incoming Sheriff Mike Napier says that he hasn't made a decision yet on the subject. He said that, quote, it's not completely clear what all the nuances of President-elect Trump's approach will be. How he avoided snickering when uttering nuance and Trump in the same sentence, we'll never know. Finally, Napier said that he'll hold off because there are too many unknowns. The biggest unknown is figuring out how to get rid of Sheriff Joe, who's been lurking around the sheriff's office this past week.
There is some good news and some bad news for Tucson economy. Let's start with the good. Tucson's unemployment rate fell for the third straight month, dropping down to 4.8%. That's well below the state's 5.2%. Arizona's unemployment rate also fell by 0.3 of a point. Yuma County has consistently shown the greatest gains. That's due to the county's major agricultural economy, which isn't measured in employment statistics. Yavapai County made the biggest gains overall with a 4.8% growth rate for the year. However, much of the employment growth in the state was captured by temp agencies, with traditional retail stores only increasing employment by a measly 0.6%. In Tucson, retail, wholesale, food and beverage industries lost 200 workers, with the highest growth occurring again in the health and human services sector. I guess that wasn't that good of news after all. Well, here's the bad news, or should I say worse news. Arizonan incomes are falling in comparison to the rest of the country by 0.7%, where Arizona incomes are only at 81% of the national pay. The state has slid steadily since 2006, when the rate was 91% of national incomes. Part of this is due to the growth in low-income jobs in the food and service industries and the disappearance of well-paying manufacturing jobs. Governor Doug Ducey says he's aware of the problem, so that's good. He supports a private-public partnership to increase the amount of degrees and certifications, which is only 42% of the state's population. Ducey hopes to reach 60% by cutting public funds to Arizona's public universities.
Details of Monsanto's greenhouse plans for Marana have been released. The plans were circulated 5 days before Board of Supervisors will vote on the measure. Pima County is lending its support to the project that will provide a 10-year free trade zone designation. That designation comes with significant tax breaks for the agricultural giant. Critics, like County Supervisor Richard Elias, object to the project, citing Monsanto's controversial GMO operations and its widespread use of Roundup. The pesticide is banned in the European Union due to fears of negative health effects. Under the terms of the prospective plan, Monsanto will pay a 5% tax rate on the land. The standard tax rate is 15%. In return, Monsanto will spend $90 million on the 7-acre growth greenhouses and employ 50 workers, half of them full-time with a salary of $44,000. The jobs offer health insurance. Hopefully, it covers genetic defects.
The city of Tucson is considering a half-cent sales tax to raise funds for public safety and improving roads. The city estimates that the raise in sales tax would cost Tucsonans $3 a month, less than the price of a month subscription to Pornhub. We know you can make the sacrifice, Tucson. If the sales tax is enacted, voters may have the chance to extend it beyond the initial 5 years. Over 5 years, the sales tax will raise $250 million, with $150 going to fire and police and the other $100 used to fix roads. Tucson roads have been labeled some of the worst in the country, while the fire department suffered 2 malfunctions of their fire engines. 1 month of Pornhub, folks. That's it. The next town hall is on Monday, November 21st at 5:30 p.m. at El Pueblo Senior Center. Now in national and international news.
Former Defense Intelligence Agency Director General Michael Flynn has been named to the National Security Advisor by President-elect Donald Trump. Flynn's military experience was mostly operational. He was Director of Intelligence in Central Command during the Iraq and Afghanistan debacles. In 2012, he was named head of the DIA by President Obama, until he was forced into retirement. In 2014, after dealing with members of his team, Flynn claims that he was ostracized because he was tough on Islamic terrorism, an attitude rejected by the White House. Other sources say Flynn was forced out because of chaotic management style. That should make him a great fit in the Trump administration. Trump's transition plans have been rocky at best, with a host of firings in the past week. I guess Trump still thinks he's hosting The Apprentice. Retired General Mike Mullen and others have criticized Flynn for politicizing his title of general, as he regularly speaks out against the same Obama administration in which he served. Critics say that he shouldn't present himself as a member of the military elite, while in reality he's retired. He also came under fire this week when it was revealed that Flynn accepted tens of thousands of dollars in return for lobbying work for the Turkish government, who has imprisoned hundreds of journalists to stifle dissent. On Election Day, Flynn wrote an op-ed in The Hill urging U.S. cooperation with the Turkish government. He was also paid $90,000 by the National Mobilization Forces, an Iraqi military group trained by the Turkish government. Flynn says that he will relinquish his role in Flynn International Group, the lobbying firm that he runs. However, Flynn has stated that it will close the company. Maybe he'll give the company to Trump's children as a Christmas present.
It's not just banking and private stocks that are making America great again. Now, for-profit colleges are getting theirs too. Congress plans to repeal some of President Obama's student loans rules, which were set up in 2012. Republicans are focusing on one piece of legislation in particular, which shields borrowers who attended for-profit colleges. Many of those colleges are tied up in fraud lawsuits, including ITT Tech, Corinthian Colleges, and the Donald's own Trump University. The law states that students can make a fraud claim with the Department of Education in order to get debt relief. The Education Department has already approved $250 million in debt forgiveness from 15,000 applicants from former Corinthian College students. If Republicans succeed, this would certainly be a boost for for-profit colleges, whose stock rose upon the news and paving the way for a future Trump University Tucson campus.
Civil rights groups are suffering aneurysms this week after multiple statements from Trump surrogates discussed a Muslim registration system, which is supposedly in the works. It began when Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, a key member of Trump's transition team, said that the Team Trump was considering legislation that would force Muslims from terrorist-prone countries to register in a national database. The idea stems from a law that already existed. Known as NSEERS, the program was instituted under the Bush administration after 9/11 and was discontinued in 2011 after it was declared redundant by Homeland Security. Out of over 13,000 registered in the program, no one was accused of any crimes, and the program was dismissed as wasteful. Human rights groups criticized it, saying it targeted Muslims. Kobach has a history of crafting anti-immigration laws, helping to draft Arizona's SB 1070 and a law that required voters to provide birth certificates when registering. The Supreme Court later struck down this law. But lest you think Kobach is a racist, consider this. In the late 70s, as head of the Republic Club, which is like the Boy Scouts with bow ties, Kobach gave support to rebels in Afghanistan called the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen later transformed into the Taliban. See? He helped foreigners succeed. How could he be a racist?
Federal Reserve Board Chair Janet Yellen has warned that Donald Trump's plan for infrastructure spending could balloon the national debt. In a speech on Capitol Hill on Tuesday, Yellen said that this is not the time to spend on infrastructure since the country is operating at almost full employment. Trump plans to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure, even though he's also pledged to offer tax cuts. Presumably, the infrastructure spending will be financed by borrowed money and magic. In regards to borrowed money, Yellen said that borrowing so much could impact our already huge deficit, and if the economy gets into trouble, there won't be any options available to fix it. Yellen also derided Trump's criticisms of Dodd-Frank, with Yellen claiming that the law places appropriate reforms and safeguards against another economic crash like we saw in 2008. She then promised that she would not leave office due to Trump's criticism of her on the campaign trail, ending the speech by dropping the mic and holding up 2 middle fingers. Those middle fingers were emblazoned with the words, "Dump Trump."
Yesterday, President Barack Obama delivered his strongest statement since the election. In a news conference in Berlin, Obama passionately criticized the spread of fake news online. Twice in his hour-long address, Obama called bogus news stories distributed on sites like Facebook, quote, threats to democracy. We agree. Your conspiracy theories are clogging up my feed, Uncle Bob. He also took the time to comment on the president-elect. Obama said he would not advise those who feel strongly about issues raised during the campaign to be silent. Is that a subtle endorsement of protests that spread across the USA post-election? Our president warned that Donald won't last long in office if he doesn't take his new role seriously and urged Trump to be tough on Russia. I know Obama was probably as conflicted as the rest of us, but now he's starting to sound like a disapproving father whose kid just told him the dog ate their homework. Maybe a pooch is to blame for the Trump team's failure to get key documents to the D.C. in time to begin the presidential transition.
The United States Department of Veterans Affairs will not be going through with its proposal to provide gender confirmation surgery for transgender veterans. These kinds of surgeries are performed as one of a variety of therapies for gender dysphoria, that is, the emotional distress that transgender people often feel as a result of their gender identity not matching the gender listed on their birth certificate. According to the National Center for Transgender Equality, there are an estimated 134,000 transgender American veterans, and over 15,000 trans people are serving in the military today. This announcement is devastating news for trans vets who often experience extreme anxiety and depression due to the distress caused by gender dysphoria, which can lead to suicide. Although the VA provides some services, including mental health care, hormone therapy, and pre- and postoperative care, a ban in effect since 1999 has disallowed the department from providing the surgery itself. Although a proposal to lift the ban has been endorsed by VA officials and trans vets, it was pulled from the VA's fall 2016 unified agenda. A senior department official told Military.com that the Office of Budget and Management nixed the proposed rule change because the VA did not outline a plan for funding it. The proposal could be in permanent jeopardy. As the Trump cabinet prepares to replace Obama's, there is fear that the incoming administration will not be as receptive to LGBTQ issues as the current one. Ashley Broadway, president of the American Military Partners Association, which advocates for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender troops and families, said in a statement, quote, "All of our nation's veterans, regardless of their gender identity, deserve access to the medical care they earned serving our nation. This is a deeply disappointing setback in making sure an often necessary medical procedure is part of that care. We implore fair-minded Americans to stand united in holding our new administration officials accountable by insisting this be fixed." Although Trump has not released any specific policy stances on the issue, his vice president-elect is a terrifying ghoul who supported the use of federal funding to treat people seeking to change their sexual behavior, so it's not looking good, my fellow queers. There has been a rash of nationwide anti-LGBTQ abuse and assault in the wake of Trump's election. If you or anyone you know is suffering from anxiety, depression, or abuse, please call the GLBT National Hotline at 1-888-843-4564 or go to glbthotline.org or itgetsbetterproject.org for help and support.
And I wanted to take a moment to talk about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we are undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it. And we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us. Do it. Do it now. Email us at creativetucson.org to get involved.
This was Luke Goodhart
and Phil Gordon. for 5 on 20 News.
Next up, Phil shares his take on politics.
I'm finally starting to sober up from the general election results. And the whole thing reminds me of one of my favorite Rodney Dangerfield jokes. I'm a bad drunk. You know, when I drink, I got to do 2 things in the morning: find my car and bring back the one I took. That's the way I feel about the election results. For Arizona, the wild drunken car ride we took in that shiny blue new Tesla sports car is when we convinced ourselves that Arizona could turn blue, that the state Senate would have a Democratic majority, that Ann Kirkpatrick could retire John McCain, and that Matt Hines would defeat Martha McSally. All the while, we were sure we'd be celebrating with recreational marijuana. That's not exactly the way it turned out. Now, we have to return that car to the original owners and pick up our own ride. You know, the reliable old faded red Buick, the one you inherited from Grandpa when he retired to Sun City West. Unfortunately, the ride we're returning to is where every state official is held by Republicans, with a Republican majority in the House and Senate, and with conservative judicial appointments. Sheriff Jan Brewer and Sheriff Joe, sometimes you can have recurring hangovers from previous binges, like Jan Brewer, Jeff DeWitt, Sheriff Joe, all under consideration for appointments in the Trump administration. Can you say Sarah Palin? That's my take. I'm Phil Gordon.